Jasmine Wright's bloodied face appeared on every major news network that evening. The bruises couldn't hide her determined expression as she stood beside her father, Malcolm Wright, CEO of Horizon Technologies. "This isn't just about me," she declared. "It's about every black person who's been silenced mid-flight." Before we dive into this shocking story that's making headlines across the nation, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments, and if you believe everyone deserves dignity while traveling, hit that like button and subscribe to stay updated on stories that matter. Now let's uncover what really happened on that fateful flight. Maya Thompson woke to sunlight streaming through her dorm window at Princeton University. Today was special. Her father's 50th birthday celebration waited at the end of her journey home to Atlanta. As the 19-year-old sophomore stretched and checked her phone, 3 text messages from her mother reminded her not to miss her flight. "As if I would," Maya murmured, smiling at her mother's characteristic worry. She glanced at the framed family photo beside her bed, her standing between her parents at her high school graduation. Her father, Maya Thompson, looked regal in his tailored suit, his arm protectively around her shoulders. As CEO of Pinnacle Innovations, the leading AI security company in the country, Lamar had built an empire from nothing. His journey from a small apartment in South Chicago to the executive suite of a Fortune 500 company was the blueprint Maya followed in her own life. Her father's legacy was both inspiring and intimidating. Maya had chosen computer science as her major, partly because of her natural aptitude and partly to follow in his footsteps. While her friends complained about parental pressure, Maya's came from within, a desire to prove she deserved the opportunities his success had afforded her. She opened her closet and selected a comfortable yet professional outfit for the flight: dark jeans, a cream cashmere sweater, and low-heeled boots. The Thompson name carried weight, and Maya had learned early that as a black woman her appearance would always be scrutinized more harshly than her white peers. "The world gives us less room for error," her father often said, "so we make no errors." Her phone rang just as she finished applying a light coat of mascara. "Good morning, Mom," she answered. "Maya, baby, are you packed?" Regina Thompson's warm voice filled the room. "Your father thinks you're not coming until tomorrow. The surprise is still intact." Maya grinned. "Everything's ready. I've got his gift wrapped and hidden in my carry-on." The custom-designed watch had cost 3 months of Maya's research stipend, but it was worth it. Engraved on the back was a message only her father would understand: "Time builds legacies. Love builds lives." "He's going to love it," Regina assured her. "Now do you have your boarding pass, first class, right by the window, just how you like it?" "Yes, Mom. Princeton to Philadelphia, Philadelphia to Atlanta. I'll be home by 3. After hanging up, Maya finished packing while reviewing her quantum computing notes. Even while traveling, she maintained her position at the top of her class. As one of only 7 black women in the engineering program, she felt the weight of representation constantly. Just last week, Professor Harrington had asked her to share the black perspective on AI ethics, as if she could speak for an entire race. Maya had politely redirected the question, but the incident still stung. She checked her watch, a gift from her father, when she received her Princeton acceptance letter. Time to head to the train station for the short trip to Philadelphia International Airport. On the train, Maya texted her best friend Zoe about the surprise party plans. "Dad still has no idea," she wrote. "Mom's got his favorite chef catering dinner." "Your dad deserves it," Zoe replied. "Mine still can't believe Maya Thompson personally recommended him for that cybersecurity position." At the airport, Maya noticed the subtle shifts in how people treated her. Security personnel examining her ID longer than the white woman ahead of her. The coffee shop barista's surprise when she ordered a simple black coffee instead of something sweeter. These minor indignities were so routine, they barely registered anymore. As Maya headed toward her gate, she mentally rehearsed her birthday toast. This milestone deserved her most eloquent words for the man who had taught her to face every challenge with dignity and determination. The boarding area for Flight 1382 from Philadelphia to Atlanta buzzed with the usual pre-flight energy. Maya stood in the priority boarding line, ticket and ID in hand. Her first-class seat was courtesy of her father's frequent flyer status, automatically upgraded whenever she traveled. Now boarding our first-class passengers and those needing special assistance, the gate agent announced through the crackling speaker system. Maya stepped forward, presenting her boarding pass. The agent scrutinized her ID for several seconds longer than necessary before forcing a smile. "Enjoy your flight, Miss Thompson," she said, emphasis on the surname as if questioning its authenticity. Maya had grown accustomed to these micro moments of doubt. She smiled politely and moved toward the jetway. On board, a flight attendant named Brianna directed her to seat 3A, a window position in the third row of first class. "Can I get you a pre-departure beverage?" Brianna asked, her tone professional but lacking the warmth she'd shown to the white businessman ahead of Maya. "Water would be perfect, thank you," Maya replied. As she settled into her seat, arranging her laptop bag beneath the chair in front of her, Maya noticed an elderly white man watching her from across the aisle. He appeared to be in his late 60s, with silver hair and an expensive watch that caught the cabin lights as he adjusted his sleeve. His expression contained a familiar mix of curiosity and disapproval that Maya had seen countless times. The man pressed his call button before Brianna had even reached the galley. "Excuse me," he said when she returned. "I believe there might be some confusion. This young lady is seated in first class." His tone suggested this was clearly an error requiring immediate correction. Brianna glanced at Maya, embarrassment flashing across her face. "Sir, all passengers are in their assigned seats. Perhaps you could verify," he pressed, eyebrows raised. Maya kept her expression neutral, despite the heat rising in her cheeks. She'd experienced this before. The assumption that her presence in premium spaces must be a mistake. Brianna apologetically asked to see Maya's boarding pass again, which she provided without comment. After confirming what she already knew, the flight attendant turned back to the man. "Mr. Whitaker, Miss Thompson, is correctly seated. Can I get you anything before takeoff?" The man, Raymond Whitaker, according to the luggage tag visible on his carry-on, frowned but accepted a scotch on the rocks. His gaze periodically drifted toward Maya throughout the boarding process, his disapproval palpable. Two white businessmen seated across from Raymond struck up a conversation with him about golf courses in Atlanta. They laughed and exchanged business cards, forming an instant camaraderie that pointedly excluded Maya despite her proximity. When the boarding door closed, Maya removed her laptop, intending to work during the flight. Her quantum computing project was due next week, and she'd made significant progress on an algorithm that could revolutionize data encryption. "Electronic devices should be stowed for takeoff," Raymond remarked loudly, though Maya had merely placed the computer on her lap without opening it. "Of course," she replied, calmly returning the laptop to her bag. "I'm familiar with the regulations." Maya closed her eyes, remembering her father's advice from years ago when she'd come home crying after a teacher had ignored her raised hand for an entire class period. "There will always be people who wish to deny your intelligence, your worth, your very presence in spaces they consider theirs," he told her. "Your excellence is not just an achievement, it's your armor. Wear it always, but never let it harden your heart." The aircraft pushed back from the gate, the safety demonstration playing on overhead screens. Maya took a deep breath. In 2 hours, she'd be home in Atlanta, surrounded by family who saw her completely. As the plane accelerated down the runway, she felt the familiar pressure against her seat, followed by the gentle lift as they took to the sky. For a brief moment, watching Philadelphia shrink beneath them, Maya felt a sense of freedom that traveling had always given her, a temporary escape from the constant awareness of how others perceived her. That feeling would be shattered all too soon. Once the captain turned off the fastened seatbelt sign, Maya retrieved her laptop and opened her quantum computing project. The complex code filling her screen represented months of research, potentially groundbreaking work that could earn her a prestigious internship next summer. Across the aisle, Raymond Whitaker shifted in his seat, his gaze repeatedly drifting toward Maya. Each time she looked up, he quickly averted his eyes, but the tension remained palpable. "Excuse me, Raymond," called to Brianna as she passed with a beverage cart. "Could you ask this young lady to type more quietly? The noise is quite disruptive." Maya's fingers had been moving silently across her keyboard. She paused, taking a measured breath before speaking. "I apologize if I'm disturbing you," she said calmly. "I'll be more mindful." Brianna offered an apologetic smile. "Can I get either of you something to drink?" "Tomato juice, no ice," Raymond replied curtly. "Just water for me, thank you," Maya said. 20 minutes later, Raymond pressed the call button again. "The perfume from this seat is overwhelming my sinuses," he complained when Brianna arrived. Maya wasn't wearing perfume, only unscented deodorant and the faintest hint of cocoa butter lotion. She closed her laptop. "I'm sorry you're uncomfortable, sir," she responded, with practiced patience. "I'm not wearing fragrance, but I can request a different seat if one's available." Brianna glanced around the full first-class cabin. "I'm afraid we're completely booked today. Perhaps I could offer you some tissues, Mr. Whitaker." Raymond declined with a dismissive wave, his expression souring further. Maya returned to her work, though her concentration had been broken. She sensed his eyes on her screen, now watching, as she navigated through complex algorithms. "That screen is excessively bright," he announced, loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear. "It's giving me a headache." Maya adjusted her screen brightness to its lowest setting without comment. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "Never let them bait you into losing your composure." The man in front of Raymond reclined his seat slightly, prompting immediate protest. The flight attendants were becoming visibly uncomfortable with Raymond's continuous complaints, exchanging glances as he summoned them for increasingly trivial issues. An hour into the flight, Raymond unbuckled his seatbelt and stood. "Bathroom," he muttered, squeezing past the aisle passenger beside him. As he passed Maya's seat, his elbow accidentally knocked against her water glass, splashing liquid onto her sleeve. She dabbed at the water with a napkin, saying nothing. When Raymond returned from the bathroom several minutes later, he paused beside Maya's row. His expression had hardened into something more deliberately hostile than mere irritation. "These young people," he said loudly to no one in particular, "always feel entitled to spaces they haven't earned." Maya kept her eyes on her screen typing code that had become meaningless as she focused on maintaining her composure. She felt the familiar pressure building. The requirement to be twice as calm, twice as professional, twice as forgiving as anyone else would need to be in the same situation. Raymond fumbled with his drink on the tray table as he returned to his seat. In a motion too deliberate to be accidental, he tilted the glass, sending tomato juice cascading directly onto Maya's open laptop. "Oh my," he exclaimed, with transparent insincerity. "How clumsy of me." Maya instinctively stood to protect her computer, lifting it as red liquid dripped between the keys. Months of irreplaceable work could be destroyed in seconds. "What are you doing?" Raymond demanded, his voice suddenly angry as she rose from her seat. "My project," Maya began, her voice tight with restraint. "Please, I need napkins to dry my keyboard." As she turned toward the aisle, Raymond's face contorted with rage. His hand shot out, shoving against her shoulder. When Maya didn't fall back into her seat, as he apparently expected, his foot followed. A deliberate kick, striking directly into her stomach with surprising force for a man his age. The impact knocked the air from Maya's lungs. She stumbled backward, her head connecting sharply with the window beside her seat. The laptop slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor as Maya collapsed into her seat, gasping for breath, her vision swimming with sudden tears of pain. The cabin erupted in shocked exclamations. "He kicked her. Did you see that? Someone get the flight attendant?" A woman in the row behind Maya stood immediately. "I'm a doctor. Let me through." Raymond remained standing, his face flushed. "She was about to attack me. You all saw it." She stood up aggressively. The two businessmen who had been friendly with Raymond earlier sat in stunned silence, one of them now recording the aftermath on his phone. Brianna rushed down the aisle, followed by the lead flight attendant. "Sir, you need to sit down immediately." "This is ridiculous," Raymond spat. "She was threatening me." Another passenger, a black man in his 40s, wearing a tailored suit, stood from his seat in the second row. That's a blatant lie. This young lady did nothing but stand up when you deliberately spilled your drink on her computer. Then you assaulted her. The cabin filled with tense voices as Raymond continued protesting his innocence, while Maya sat clutching her abdomen, the doctor checking her pupil response with a small light. Over the intercom, the captain's voice cut through the chaos. "This is your captain speaking. Due to a disturbance in the cabin, we are diverting back to Philadelphia. Flight attendants, prepare the cabin for landing." Maya's head throbbed as she tried to process what had happened. Through her pain, one thought surfaced with painful clarity. This man had felt so entitled to his space, so offended by her mere presence, that he'd resorted to physical violence. And even now, with dozens of witnesses, he expected to be believed over her. As the plane banked into its turn back toward Philadelphia, Maya gingerly touched her forehead where it had struck the window. Her fingers came away with a smear of blood. The Boeing 737 descended through clouds back toward Philadelphia, the cabin atmosphere electric with tension. Maya sat with an ice pack pressed against her forehead provided by Dr. Elaine Foster, the physician who had rushed to her aid. The doctor remained beside her, periodically checking her symptoms for signs of concussion. "Any blurred vision?" Dr. Foster asked quietly, keeping one eye on Raymond Whitaker, who had been relocated to the last row of first class. A little, Maya admitted, wincing as the plane hit a pocket of turbulence. "And I'm nauseous." "Likely a mild concussion," the doctor noted, writing something on a business card. "You'll need proper medical attention when we land." Maya's laptop lay on her tray table, tomato juice still dripping from between the keys. Months of research potentially destroyed in an instant of hateful impulse. She'd already called her father, despite her initial reluctance to worry him on his birthday. His response had been immediate and forceful. "I'm coming to Philadelphia. Don't speak to anyone but the police until I arrive." The black attorney who had spoken up in Maya's defense had introduced himself as Tyler Jordan, a partner at a prominent Atlanta law firm. "I saw everything," he assured her, passing her another business card. "That man targeted you from the moment you sat down. Pure, undisguised prejudice." "It happens more often than people realize," Maya replied softly. Tyler nodded grimly. "I know. I fly weekly." Brianna approached with a cup of water and some forms. "The captain needs you to fill out an incident report. I'm so sorry, Miss Thompson. We should have intervened earlier." "You couldn't have known he would become violent," Maya said, though part of her wondered if a white passenger would have been subjected to Raymond's escalating harassment for so long without staff intervention. From the back of the cabin, Raymond's voice carried forward. "This is absurd. I'm a respected businessman." She was behaving aggressively. The lead flight attendant stood firmly in his way. "Sir, remain in your assigned seat or we'll have restraints ready." As the plane touched down, Maya felt her phone vibrate with texts from her mother. "Your father chartered a helicopter. He'll be at the airport when you land. Police are waiting too. We love you." The aircraft taxied to a remote stand rather than a gate. Through the window, Maya could see police vehicles waiting on the tarmac. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Richards," the intercom crackled. "Local authorities will be boarding the aircraft momentarily. Please remain seated with seatbelts fastened until instructed otherwise." The cabin door opened and 3 Philadelphia police officers stepped aboard. The lead officer, a middle-aged white man, spoke briefly with the flight crew before approaching Maya's row. "Miss Thompson," he asked, his expression professionally neutral. "I'm Officer Brennan. Can you tell me what happened?" Before Maya could answer, Raymond called out from the back. "Officer, I'm the victim here. This woman was threatening me." Officer Brennan held up a hand. "Sir, you'll have your chance to speak. Right now, I'm talking to Miss Thompson." Maya explained the sequence of events calmly, despite her throbbing head. Dr. Foster interjected occasionally to note Maya's injuries were consistent with her account. Tyler Jordan stood. "Officer, I witnessed everything. I have my card here. I'm an attorney with Jackson, Prescott, and Meyer. Mr. Whitaker's behavior was clearly targeted harassment that escalated to assault. "She's playing the race card," Raymond shouted. This is reverse discrimination. A flight attendant approached Officer Brennan. Sir, multiple passengers have video recordings of the incident. The businessman who had been recording held up his phone. I got everything from when he spilled the drink deliberately. Clear assault on camera. Officer Brennan's initially skeptical expression shifted as more passengers spoke up, all confirming Maya's account. 2 additional officers moved to Raymond's row. Mr. Whitaker, please gather your belongings. You'll be deplaning first and coming with us to answer some questions. This is outrageous. Do you know who I am? Raymond sputtered as officers escorted him toward the exit. My brother-in-law plays golf with the police commissioner. As Raymond was led off the aircraft, Maya felt a sudden wave of exhaustion crash over her. The adrenaline that had sustained her was fading, leaving behind sharp pain and profound weariness. I need to call my father again, she whispered. The paramedics are coming aboard now, Brianna informed her. They'll take you to the hospital for evaluation. The remaining passengers watched solemnly as emergency medical technicians entered with a wheelchair. One passenger reached across the aisle to squeeze Maya's hand supportively. You handled that with incredible grace, the woman said. I'm so sorry this happened to you. As the EMTs helped Maya into the wheelchair, she caught fragments of conversations around her. I can't believe people still act like this in 2025. I wonder if the airline will be liable for not stopping it sooner. Bet this goes viral by tonight. The reality of what had just occurred was finally hitting her fully. On what should have been a routine flight home for her father's birthday, Maya had become another statistic, another black body deemed unwelcome in a space a white man considered his domain. The injustice of it burned in her chest alongside the physical pain. As she was wheeled toward the aircraft door, Maya noticed something that gave her pause. Several passengers were typing furiously on their phones, likely sharing the incident on social media. By the time she reached the hospital, her assault would be news. Are you as shocked by Raymond's behavior as I am? Comment 1 if you think the airline should have intervened earlier when he first started harassing Maya. Comment 2 if you believe flight attendants need better training and protocols for handling discrimination. Like this video if you believe companies should be held accountable when they fail to protect passengers from harassment. And if you want to see more stories about standing up against discrimination, hit that subscribe button right now. What would you have done if you witnessed this situation on your flight? Have you ever experienced or witnessed racial discrimination while traveling? Share your thoughts in the comments. And what do you think will happen when Maya's powerful CEO father arrives? The hospital scene coming up next is something you won't want to miss. The fluorescent lights of the Philadelphia Police Department's airport substation buzzed overhead as Maya sat on a hard plastic chair ice pack still pressed against her forehead. Officer Brennan sat across from her typing her statement into a computer terminal, while a female officer named Rodriguez occasionally offered her water or asked if she needed medical attention. The paramedics recommended you go to the hospital, Officer Rodriguez reminded her. We can continue this there. Maya shook her head carefully, wincing at the movement. I'd prefer to complete my statement first. My father will be here soon and he'll arrange medical care. The truth was, Maya wanted her account on record before Raymond Whitaker could spin his version of events. She'd witnessed too many instances where black victims found themselves transformed into perpetrators through the alchemy of institutional bias. So after Mr. Whitaker kicked you in the abdomen, you fell back against the window, correct? Officer Brennan asked. Yes. The impact caused me to hit my head, which resulted in this laceration and possible concussion. Officer Brennan nodded, fingers tapping against his keyboard. His initially skeptical demeanor had shifted after multiple witnesses confirmed her account and mentioned the existence of video evidence. The door to the small interview room swung open, and a man in a suit entered, flashing a badge too quickly for Maya to read. Detective Carson, Hate Crimes Unit, he introduced himself. Miss Thompson, I'll be taking over from here. Maya straightened despite her pain. The involvement of the Hate Crimes Unit suggested they were taking the incident seriously. Hate Crimes Officer Brennan raised an eyebrow. The guy's a jerk who couldn't handle sitting next to a young black woman in first class. That's not automatically a hate crime. Detective Carson gave him a measured look. When Mr. Whitaker was escorted off the plane, he made several statements that suggest racial animus was a motivating factor. "I'll handle the interview from here." As Brennan exited, Detective Carson sat down, his expression professionally compassionate. "Miss Thompson, I understand this is difficult, but I need you to recount the entire interaction from the beginning, including any comments Mr. Whitaker made that might indicate racial bias." Maya began again, carefully detailing Raymond's escalating behavior. His questioning of her presence in first class, his repeated complaints, the deliberate spilling of the drink, and finally the assault. "Did he use any specific language that referenced your race?" Carson asked. "Not explicitly," Maya admitted, "but his behavior followed a pattern I've experienced before. The assumption that I didn't belong there, the increasing agitation at my presence in what he considered his space." Carson nodded thoughtfully. "We have statements from several witnesses who believed his behavior was racially motivated, including the flight attendant who said, Mr. Whitaker specifically asked to verify your first-class status, but didn't make similar inquiries about other passengers." As Maya finished her statement, the door opened again. This time, a tall black man in an impeccably tailored suit entered his commanding presence, immediately filling the small room. Lamar Thompson's face was a careful mask of controlled fury as he strode to his daughter. "Maya," he said, embracing her gently. "Are you all right?" "I'm okay, Dad," she assured him, though tears threatened for the first time. "Happy birthday." Lamar's expression cracked slightly at her attempted humor. "I've arranged for a specialist to examine you at Jefferson Hospital. The helicopter is waiting." He turned to Detective Carson. "I'm Lamar Thompson, Maya's father. I'd like to know what charges are being filed against the man who assaulted my daughter." Mr. Thompson Carson acknowledged recognition flickering in his eyes at the name of Pinnacle Innovation's famous CEO. "We're currently processing Mr. Whitaker for assault and battery. We're also investigating potential hate crime enhancements. And his status now. He's being held for charging. His attorney has already arrived." Lamar's jaw tightened. "Of course he has. And has my daughter received medical attention while giving her statement?" "I refused to go to the hospital until I'd given my statement," Maya explained, standing carefully. "I wanted to make sure they had my account first." Pride flickered in Lamar's eyes before concern reasserted itself. "We're getting you proper medical attention now." "One moment, Mr. Thompson," Detective Carson said. "We've been informed that video of the incident is already circulating online. Several news outlets are requesting statements." Maya hadn't considered the public relations aspect until this moment. Her phone had been blowing up with notifications from friends who had somehow already heard about the incident. "Our family attorney is en route," Lamar replied. "Grace Washington will handle all communication with the press. Right now, my priority is my daughter's health." Outside the police station, Maya was surprised to see a small crowd of reporters already gathered. Camera flashes burst as she emerged with her father's supportive arm around her shoulders. "Miss Thompson, can you comment on the assault, Mr. Thompson? Is this a case of racial profiling by the airline? Will Pinnacle Innovations be taking action against the airline?" Lamar guided Maya through the throng without comment, his security team creating a path toward the waiting car that would take them to the helicopter. At Jefferson Hospital, Maya underwent a comprehensive examination, including CT scans and neurological tests. The diagnosis confirmed what Dr. Indradan Foster had suspected on the plane: a mild concussion, contusions to her abdomen, and a laceration requiring 3 stitches at her temple. As Maya lay in the hospital bed, her mother Regina arrived, having taken the first available flight from Atlanta. "Baby," she whispered, touching Maya's face gently. "I can't believe this happened to you." "I'm okay, Mom," Maya assured her, though the pain medication was making her drowsy. Outside the private room, Lamar spoke in hushed tones with Grace Washington, the family's longtime attorney. Through the partially open door, Maya could hear fragments of their conversation. "Already spinning it as self-defense," Grace was saying. "His attorney is claiming Maya stood up aggressively and Raymond feared for his safety. He's 6'2" and outweighs her by at least 80 pounds, Lamar responded, his voice tight with controlled anger. And we have video evidence. The airline released a statement calling it an unfortunate passenger incident. They're trying to minimize their liability. Get me a direct line to Jonathan Pierce, Lamar said, naming the airline's CEO. He and I need to have a conversation about how his company handles racial harassment. Maya's phone screen lit up with notifications. Someone had posted video of the incident on social media, and it was spreading rapidly. The initial media headlines focused on the flight disruption rather than the assault. First-class disturbance causes emergency landing passenger dispute, diverts Philadelphia to Atlanta flight. Some outlets were already framing it as a he said, she said situation, despite the video evidence and multiple witnesses. One conservative commentator had tweeted, "Another privileged minority playing victim to cancel an elderly white man. Let's wait for all the facts." Maya closed her eyes, suddenly overwhelmed. What should have been her father's birthday celebration had transformed into a public spectacle, another battleground in America's never-ending racial tensions. Grace Washington entered the hospital room, her expression professionally composed, despite the circumstances. "Maya, how are you feeling?" she asked, setting her briefcase on a nearby chair. "Like I've been kicked in the stomach and hit my head," Maya replied with weak humor. Grace's smile was brief. "I need to discuss something with you and your parents. Raymond Whitaker has been released on bail." Regina gasped. "Already?" After a violent assault caught on camera. "His family has significant connections in Philadelphia," Grace explained. "His attorney is already working to frame this as a misunderstanding between passengers, possibly even claiming self-defense." "That's absurd," Lamar stated flatly. "We have video evidence and multiple witnesses." "Yes, but they're attempting to control the narrative early." Whitaker gave a statement to the press, claiming he felt threatened by Maya's aggressive posture when she stood up. Maya laughed incredulously, then winced at the pain it caused. "I stood up because he deliberately poured tomato juice on my laptop. I was trying to save my research project." "We know that," Grace assured her. "But we need to decide how to proceed. This is becoming a media story, and how we respond matters greatly." Lamar paced the small room, his normally careful composure fraying at the edges. "I've spent my entire career navigating predominantly white spaces with perfect control. I've swallowed countless indignities to build pinnacle innovations. I taught Maya to do the same, to be twice as good, twice as careful, twice as forgiving." He stopped, looking at his daughter's bandaged forehead. "But this time, we're not taking the high road. This time, we fight back." Maya had never heard her father speak this way. He had always counseled patience, excellence, and strategic thinking over direct confrontation with racism. "What are you suggesting?" Regina asked carefully. "I'm suggesting we use every resource at our disposal to ensure Raymond Whitaker faces consequences and that the airline acknowledges their role in allowing his behavior to escalate. No settlements with confidentiality agreements, no quiet resolutions." Grace nodded thoughtfully. "It won't be easy. The Whitaker family has connections and resources, too." "Not like ours," Lamar replied, his voice hardening with resolve. "Not anymore." Maya's phone buzzed with another notification. A college friend had texted, "Oh my God, just saw the video. Are you okay?" She set the phone aside, suddenly exhausted by the knowledge that her trauma was becoming fodder for public consumption, that her pain would be debated, analyzed, and inevitably dismissed by those who preferred comforting lies to uncomfortable truths. "I just wanted to surprise you for your birthday," she said quietly to her father. "Now everything's a mess." Lamar sat beside her bed, taking her hand. "Maya, listen to me. What happened to you was not your fault. It wasn't a mess you created. It was the result of hatred that's persisted in this country for centuries. Sometimes we manage it, sometimes we navigate around it, and sometimes it strikes us directly. But we never, ever accept it as normal or deserved. As Maya drifted into medicated sleep, the last thing she saw was her father standing protectively at the door to her hospital room, already on the phone with Pinnacle Innovations' public relations team, mobilizing resources for the battle ahead. Outside the hospital, news vans had begun to gather, preparing for the moment the Thompson family would emerge and provide the soundbite that would define this story for millions of viewers. 3 days after the incident, Maya sat in her childhood bedroom in Atlanta, scrolling through her phone with increasing disbelief. The video of Raymond kicking her had accumulated over 7 million views across various platforms. What should have been unequivocal evidence of assault had somehow spawned a polarized debate about what really happened on that flight. Raymond Whitaker had wasted no time crafting his narrative. Less than 24 hours after being released on bail, he'd appeared on national mourning for an exclusive interview dressed in a cardigan that emphasized his age and speaking with a slight tremor in his voice. "I felt genuinely threatened," he told the sympathetic host. "This young woman became aggressive when I accidentally spilled my drink. In my 70 years, I've never encountered such hostility over a simple mistake." Maya replayed the clip, noting how Raymond conveniently omitted that the simple mistake had been deliberately pouring tomato juice onto her laptop. The host never challenged this characterization. "What we're seeing here is the weaponization of cancel culture against an elderly man who made a mistake," commentator William Hayes declared on another channel. "One moment of poor judgment, and the Twitter mob wants to destroy his life." Maya's phone rang. Tyler Jordan, the attorney who had witnessed the assault and had been in regular contact since. "Maya, have you seen the latest?" he asked without preamble. "The interview where Raymond claims he's receiving death threats, or the one where he says I'm targeting him because his company competes with Pinnacle Innovations?" Maya's voice dripped with bitter sarcasm. "Neither. His legal team just released a statement claiming they have evidence you were intoxicated on the flight. They're suggesting you were unstable and confrontational with multiple passengers." Maya nearly dropped her phone. "That's a complete fabrication. I had 1 glass of water. The flight attendants can confirm that." "I know it's false," Tyler assured her. "But they're throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. Character assassination is their only play since the video clearly shows him assaulting you." Downstairs, Maya could hear her father on a conference call, his measured voice occasionally rising in rare displays of frustration. Lamar had postponed his birthday celebration indefinitely, focusing instead on what he called correcting this narrative. "The airline finally issued a new statement," Tyler continued. "They've placed the flight attendants on paid leave pending investigation and say they're committed to creating an inclusive environment for all passengers." "That's corporate speak for 'we're doing nothing,'" Maya replied. After hanging up, Maya checked her Princeton email, finding dozens of messages from classmates expressing support. The university president had issued a statement standing behind her while offering counseling resources. Her quantum computing professor had granted her an extension on the damaged project, but mixed among the supportive messages were troubling ones. Anonymous emails suggesting she'd orchestrated the incident for attention. Comments questioning why she hadn't simply moved seats if she felt uncomfortable. One particularly disturbing message contained her home address with the text, "Race baiters aren't welcome in Georgia." Maya forwarded the threat to Grace Washington without showing her parents. They had enough to worry about. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Her mother entered, carrying a mug of tea. "How's your head feeling today?" Regina asked, sitting beside Maya on the bed. "Better. The headaches are less frequent." Regina studied her daughter's face. "And the rest of you?" Maya considered deflecting, but found she lacked the energy for pretense. "I'm angry, Mom. And tired. And frustrated that this is somehow controversial. He kicked me. On camera. And yet half the country thinks I provoked it or deserved it somehow." Regina nodded, taking Maya's hand. "Your generation thinks you invented outrage at injustice. But baby, we've been here before. Different decade, same story." "Then how do you stand it?" Maya asked. "How do you wake up every day knowing that to some people your humanity is still up for debate?" Because the alternative is letting them win, Regina replied simply. The day I stop being outraged is the day I've accepted that treatment as normal. Maya's phone buzzed with a news alert. Raymond Whitaker's company, Westridge Financial, had issued a statement standing by their retired executive chairman, describing him as a man of impeccable character with 50 years of community service. His company is supporting him, Maya noted bitterly. Of course they are, Regina replied. They have to protect their brand, just like your father's employees are rallying behind you. Indeed, Pinnacle Innovation's staff had organized a campaign called Number Flyin' While Black, sharing stories of similar experiences in air travel and calling for policy changes in the airline industry. Maya's laptop situation added another layer of stress. The juice-damaged computer had been examined by Pinnacle's IT department, who had managed to recover most but not all of her quantum computing project. Years of personal photos, however, were likely lost forever. As evening approached, Maya joined her parents in the living room where CNN was featuring a panel discussion about the incident. A sociologist was explaining how first-class cabins had historically been spaces of exclusion. The issue here isn't just about one man's violent outburst, the expert explained. It's about the persistent belief that certain spaces belong to certain people and the sense of entitlement to enforce that belonging through harassment or even violence. The discussion was interrupted by breaking news, leaked audio from Raymond Whitaker's phone call to his son immediately after his release from custody. "These people always play the race card," Raymond's voice proclaimed clearly. "I'm not going to let some affirmative action princess destroy my reputation. We know people at the airline. This goes away if we apply enough pressure." The panel fell momentarily silent before erupting in renewed debate. Lamar switched off the television. "That changes things," he said quietly. "Grace needs to hear this immediately." Over dinner, the family discussed next steps. Maya had received invitations to share her story on several major networks. Princeton classmates had organized a campus demonstration against racial harassment. "I'm supposed to be back in class next Monday," Maya noted, pushing food around her plate without appetite. "But I don't know if I can face it yet." "Take the time you need," Lamar advised. "Your professors understand." "And if they don't, they'll hear from me," Regina added with uncharacteristic sharpness. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. The viral spread of her trauma had created a strange disconnection. The Maya Thompson being debated on television felt like someone else entirely, a character in a morality play, rather than a real person, with bruises still healing. She opened her laptop and began typing not code this time, but words. Her feelings, her experiences, her reality. What had started as private journaling gradually took shape as something more structured, a first-person account of not just the incident but the lifetime of similar moments that had preceded it. The constant small reminders that her presence in certain spaces would always be questioned. The exhausting vigilance required to navigate predominantly white institutions without reinforcing stereotypes. By morning, she had written over 5,000 words. Without fully considering the implications, she posted it to her rarely used Medium account with the title, "What Happened on Flight 1382 and Why It Matters." She finally fell asleep as dawn broke over Atlanta, unaware that her words were already spreading, reaching audiences far beyond her usual social circle. While she slept, her story was being shared by celebrities, retweeted by civil rights leaders, and discussed in morning editorial meetings across the country. When Maya finally woke around noon, her phone was filled with notifications, and her father was waiting downstairs with news. 3 major airlines had reached out to Pinnacle Innovations, requesting consultation on anti-discrimination training programs. The pushback against Maya had inadvertently created an opportunity for meaningful change if she was prepared to step into the spotlight and demand it. "We'll start with some basic questions about your background, then move to the incident itself," the media trainer explained, adjusting Maya's microphone clip. "Remember, short answers are better for television. 3 to 4 sentences maximum." Maya nodded, trying to calm her nerves. In the week since publishing her Medium article, she had been thrust into an unexpected role as the new face of the Number Flyin' While Black movement. Her father's PR team had arranged this training session before her first major television interview, scheduled for tomorrow morning. "Let's practice again," the trainer suggested. "Miss Thompson, many people are asking why you didn't simply request a different seat when Mr. Whitaker began making you uncomfortable." Maya took a deep breath, remembering the talking points they'd rehearsed. There weren't any other available seats in first class. "But more importantly, I shouldn't have to remove myself from a situation where I'm being harassed. The responsibility was on the airline staff to address Mr. Whitaker's behavior before it escalated to violence." "Good," the trainer approved. "Direct and clear. Now, how will you respond when they ask about accusations that you're doing this for publicity or financial gain?" Maya's jaw tightened. This particular line of questioning had become common in conservative media outlets as Raymond Whitaker's supporters attempted to reframe the narrative. "I was flying home for my father's birthday with a research project due the following week. The last thing I wanted was to become the center of a national conversation about racial harassment. I'm speaking out now because remaining silent would signal that this treatment is acceptable." The trainer nodded approvingly. "Excellent. Always bring it back to the larger issue, rather than defending yourself personally." Maya glanced at her watch. They'd been at this for 3 hours. "Can we take a break? I need to check something." In the adjacent room, her mother was on the phone with Princeton administration, arranging for Maya to complete the semester remotely. The concussion symptoms had mostly subsided, but the emotional toll made returning to campus daunting. Maya opened her laptop to check an email from Tyler Jordan. He had compiled statements from 12 other passengers on the flight, all confirming her account. Additionally, 3 former Westridge Financial employees had come forward with stories of Raymond Whitaker's problematic behavior toward minorities in the workplace. "The prosecutor is considering upgrading the charges to include hate crime enhancements," Tyler's email concluded. Whitaker's legal team knows they're in trouble. They've already approached Grace about settlement discussions. Maya wasn't interested in a settlement. Money couldn't erase what had happened, and a confidential agreement would prevent her from speaking about the incident publicly. The systemic issues that had allowed the situation to develop would remain unaddressed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Have you seen this? Your article got shared by Michelle Obama." Maya quickly opened Twitter to confirm. Indeed, the former First Lady had shared her Medium piece with a powerful endorsement. Maya Thompson's experience reminds us that for many Americans, simply existing in certain spaces still requires extraordinary courage. Her words should be required reading for every corporate boardroom in America. The post had over 300,000 likes and counting. As Maya scrolled through responses, she noticed a notification from her quantum computing professor. He had reviewed the partially recovered files from her damaged laptop and was impressed by her algorithm's potential applications for detecting bias in facial recognition software. "Your approach to identifying pattern discrepancies could revolutionize how we audit AI systems for racial bias," he wrote. "When you're ready to return to this work, I'd like to connect you with the Ethics in Computing Lab." Maya felt a spark of excitement for the first time since the incident. Her research, which she'd feared was destroyed, might have broader implications than she'd initially realized. "Maya," her father called from the doorway. "CNN is on line 1. They want to move your interview to prime time tomorrow." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Grace Washington arrived with updates on the legal proceedings, while Lamar's team prepared statements for various scenarios that might arise during the interview. The airline had finally issued a more substantive response, announcing an internal investigation into how the situation had been handled and promising to review their training procedures. It wasn't enough, but it was a start. "Remember," Grace advised as they reviewed the airline's statement, "your goal isn't to destroy the airline, but to create accountability and change. The most powerful position is one where you're advocating for improvement rather than simple punishment." Maya nodded, understanding the strategy. Her father had built his reputation on being a problem solver rather than merely a critic. She would need to balance righteous anger with constructive solutions if she wanted to be taken seriously. On the morning of the interview, Maya stood before her mirror, carefully selecting her appearance for the millions who would be watching. She chose a professional blue dress that projected confidence without ostentation. Her natural hair was styled simply, and she applied minimal makeup that didn't hide the fading bruise at her temple. Let America see the physical evidence of what passenger disputes really looked like. At the CNN studio in downtown Atlanta, Maya was escorted to makeup and then to a quiet green room. Her father waited with her, reviewing last-minute notes. "Remember, you control this narrative now," he told her. "Not Whitaker, not the airline, not the media, you." Maya took a deep breath, centering herself. "I know, Dad." "If you feel them trying to steer you toward sensationalism or painting you as a victim, redirect. You are a leader in this conversation, not its subject." When the red light on the camera illuminated, Maya found herself facing not just the interviewer, but the collective judgment of a nation still deeply divided on issues of race. For a moment, the pressure threatened to overwhelm her. Then she remembered the words she'd written in her Medium article: "The most insidious aspect of racial harassment is how it makes you question whether speaking up will only make things worse." That momentary calculation, weighing dignity against safety principle, against peace, is a burden that weighs heavier than any physical blow. "Miss Thompson," the interviewer began, "thank you for joining us. How are you feeling after this ordeal?" Maya smiled with composed determination. "I'm focusing less on how I feel and more on what needs to change to ensure no other passenger experiences what I did. This isn't just about one incident on one flight. It's about the systems that allowed it to happen." For the next 15 minutes, Maya spoke with eloquence about the escalating nature of harassment, the responsibilities of bystanders, and the airline industry's need for clearer protocols. She avoided painting herself as a helpless victim or Raymond as a cartoonish villain, instead emphasizing the structural problems that had created the conditions for the assault. "What's remarkable to me," she noted, "is that several flight attendants have privately reached out to say they lack clear guidelines for intervening in situations of racial harassment. They're trained extensively for medical emergencies and security threats, but not for protecting passengers from discrimination." When the interviewer attempted to steer the conversation toward politics, Maya redirected skillfully. "This isn't a partisan issue. Everyone deserves to travel with dignity, regardless of political affiliation." As the segment concluded, Maya unveiled her next step, a newly established foundation funded initially by Pinnacle Innovations, dedicated to documenting discrimination in transportation and advocating for policy changes. The Transportation Equity Project will collect data, provide legal resources, and work with companies willing to improve, she explained, because this conversation needs to be about solutions, not just outrage. Off-camera, the interviewer congratulated her on a powerful appearance. "You've clearly thought deeply about these issues." "I've lived them," Maya replied simply. Back at home, her phone exploded with notifications. The interview was being widely shared with commentators, noting her poise and substantive approach. 3 additional airlines had reached out about consultation. A prominent tech conference had invited her to speak about her facial recognition research and its applications for detecting bias. For the first time since the incident, Maya felt something beyond anger or exhaustion, a sense of purpose. Raymond Whitaker had meant to put her in her place, to remind her that her presence in first class was conditional on white comfort. Instead, he had inadvertently propelled her into a position of influence she might otherwise have taken years to achieve. That evening, as Maya reviewed speaking invitations with her parents, an email arrived from Princeton's president. They wanted to highlight her quantum computing research at the upcoming trustees meeting, specifically its potential for identifying algorithmic discrimination. "See that," her father said, reading over her shoulder. "They're recognizing your intellect, not just your trauma." Maya smiled. "That's all I ever wanted, to be known for my work, my ideas." She paused, considering. "But maybe this experience is part of my work now, too. Maybe I need to own both stories." As she prepared for bed, Maya realized she was no longer dreading her eventual return to campus. The incident had changed her, certainly, but not in the way Raymond Whitaker might have intended. Rather than making her smaller, more cautious, more apologetic for occupying space, it had expanded her sense of purpose and clarified her voice. Tomorrow would bring more interviews, more strategy sessions, more challenges. But for tonight, Maya allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. She had taken a traumatic experience and transformed it into a platform for change. No settlement agreement or court verdict could match the power of that transformation. The Philadelphia County Courthouse stood imposing against the autumn sky as Maya climbed the stone steps flanked by Grace Washington and her parents. 4 months had passed since the incident on Flight 1382, and today marked the beginning of pretrial hearings in her civil case against both Raymond Whitaker and Transcontinental Airlines. Remember, Grace advised, as they approach the entrance, today is just procedural. Judge Harriman will rule on which evidence can be admitted and which expert witnesses will be allowed to testify. Maya nodded, smoothing her charcoal gray suit jacket. The bruises had long since faded, but she still occasionally experienced headaches from the concussion, a physical reminder of the assault that had transformed her life. Inside the courtroom, Raymond Whitaker sat with his legal team, deliberately avoiding eye contact as Maya entered. His appearance had been carefully cultivated to emphasize his age and apparent fragility. Hair whiter than in previous photos, shoulders slightly stooped, wire-rimmed glasses that he hadn't worn in his corporate best. Headshots. Classic defense strategy, Grace whispered. They want the jury to see a harmless grandfather figure, not the aggressive executive from the video. The airline's representatives occupied a separate table, maintaining professional distance from both Maya and Raymond. Their strategy had evolved from initial deflection to a more nuanced position, acknowledging that an unfortunate incident had occurred while denying any legal liability for it. As Judge Harriman entered and the court rose, Maya caught sight of Tyler Jordan in the gallery. He gave her an encouraging nod. Beside him sat Dr. Foster, the physician who had assisted Maya on the plane and would serve as an expert witness regarding her injuries. Case number 2025CV4872, Thompson v. Whitaker and Transcontinental Airlines, the clerk announced, pre-trial evidentiary hearing. The proceedings began with Raymond's legal team moving to exclude certain videos taken by passengers claiming they didn't show the complete interaction and could prejudice the jury. Your Honor, argued Raymond's attorney, these cell phone recordings begin only after the alleged physical contact. They don't capture Miss Thompson's aggressive stance that prompted my client's defensive reaction. Grace Washington rose, her voice measured but forceful. Your Honor, we have multiple videos from different angles, all showing the same thing, an unprovoked assault. Mr. Whitaker's claim about Miss Thompson's aggressive stance is contradicted by every witness statement collected. Additionally, the airline's own cabin cameras captured the entire sequence of events, which we've subpoenaed. Judge Harriman leaned forward. The motion to exclude passenger videos is denied. They are clearly relevant to establishing what occurred. It was the first of several procedural victories. The judge also ruled that evidence of Raymond's past behavior would be admissible, including testimony from former colleagues regarding racially charged comments and incidents. During a recess, Lamar received a call from Pinnacle Innovations headquarters. The company's stance supporting Maya had cost them a government contract bid after Raymond's connections in Washington had intervened. It wasn't the first business repercussion the family had faced, but Lamar remained unshaken. Some things matter more than quarterly projections, he told Maya after ending the call. When proceedings resumed, the airline's legal team presented their motion to be removed from the case entirely. Your Honor, while Transcontinental Airlines regrets the incident, our staff followed all standard protocols. We cannot be held liable for the unforeseeable criminal actions of a passenger. Grace Washington was prepared for this argument. Your Honor, we intend to present expert testimony on industry standards for intervention in escalating passenger conflicts. Transcontinental's own policy manual, which we've obtained through discovery, specifies that crew members should intervene when a passenger makes repeated complaints about another passenger that appear unwarranted. This protocol was not followed despite Mr. Whitaker's escalating behavior over a 90-minute period. The airline's attorney countered, "Miss Thompson never explicitly requested assistance from the flight attendants." Maya felt heat rising in her face at the implication that the harassment had been somehow her responsibility to manage. Judge Harriman denied the airline's motion, ruling that whether their actions met the standard of care was a factual question for the jury to decide. Outside the courthouse, reporters clustered on the steps, cameras flashing as Maya emerged. In the months since the incident, she had become adept at handling media attention, balancing authentic emotion with strategic messaging. "Today's rulings affirm what we've maintained from the beginning," she stated to the assembled press. "This case is about accountability. Not just for one individual's actions, but for the systems that allow discrimination to escalate to violence. I'm grateful to the court for allowing all the evidence to be heard." A reporter called out, "Ms. Thompson, Transcontinental Airlines has suggested you're targeting them because of their size and deep pockets rather than their actual culpability. Your response?" Maya maintained her composure. "This isn't about money. It's about creating safer spaces for all travelers. Transcontinental has an opportunity here to lead industry-wide change, but first they need to acknowledge their role in what happened." That evening, Maya attended a Transportation Equity Project event where other passengers shared similar experiences of harassment during air travel. The foundation had already collected over 3,000 accounts from across the country, revealing patterns that went far beyond individual bad apple passengers. Amara Jenkins, a flight attendant who had recently left the industry, spoke about the lack of training and clear protocols. "We're told to de-escalate situations without specific guidance on recognizing when racial bias is driving the conflict. The emphasis is always on keeping the peace, even when that means allowing harassment to continue." As Maya listened, her phone buzzed with a news alert. Transcontinental's stock had dropped 7% following the day's court rulings and analyst predictions of a costly settlement. Later that week, Maya received an unexpected call from Grace Washington. "The airline wants to settle," Grace informed her. "They're offering $8 million plus a commitment to implement anti-bias training for all customer-facing staff." "What's the catch?" Maya asked, suspecting the answer. "Confidentiality clause. You'd be prohibited from discussing the incident or the settlement terms publicly. And you'd need to step down from the Transportation Equity Project." Maya didn't hesitate. "No. The Foundation's work is just beginning, and silencing our voices isn't an option." Grace wasn't surprised by her response. "I'll convey your position. But Maya, they're likely to increase the offer substantially. 8 figures potentially." "It's not about the money." Maya repeated the phrase she'd used countless times since the incident. "It's about changing how these companies operate." 2 days later, Raymond Whitaker's team also approached with a settlement offer, apparently spooked by the judge's ruling, allowing testimony about his past behavior. $3 million, but again with full confidentiality, Grace reported. "They're desperate to keep this from going to trial." Maya discussed the offers with her parents over dinner. The amounts were substantial, even for a family of their means. "The money could fund the foundation for years," Lamar noted. "There's a strategic argument for accepting it and moving forward." Regina disagreed. "If they buy her silence, nothing really changes. The next Maya Thompson won't have the resources or platform to fight back." Maya considered both perspectives, torn between practical impact and principled stance. "What happens if we proceed to trial?" "It's unpredictable," Grace admitted when consulted. "Juries can be swayed by skilled defense attorneys, and Whitaker has hired the best. The airline has unlimited resources for appeals if the verdict goes against them." The decision weighed heavily on Maya as she prepared to return to Princeton for the spring semester. Her quantum computing research had garnered attention from major tech companies interested in her approach to bias detection in AI systems. Several had offered summer internships that could launch her career in exciting directions. That evening, Maya received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Jennifer Martinez, the flight attendant who had served her on Flight 1382. "I've been thinking about testifying," Jennifer explained hesitantly, "but I'm afraid of losing my job." "The airline can't legally retaliate against you for truthful testimony," Maya assured her. "Legally, no. But there are ways they make life difficult for troublemakers." Jennifer sighed. "I've worked there for 12 years. It's my career." Maya understood the woman's dilemma. "Whatever you decide, I respect your choice. But I want you to know that your testimony could help create better protocols that protect both passengers and crew members." After hanging up, Maya made her decision. No settlement. The case would proceed to trial regardless of the uncertainty or potential business implications for Pinnacle Innovations. When she informed her parents, Lamar nodded solemnly. "I expected nothing less from you." The following week, an unexpected development shifted the dynamics once again. An internal Transcontinental Airlines memo leaked to the press revealed that customer service representatives had been specifically instructed to classify racial harassment complaints as passenger preference issues rather than discrimination incidents to avoid federal reporting requirements. The public backlash was immediate. The Department of Transportation announced an investigation into the airline's practices. 3 major corporations suspended their business travel contracts with Transcontinental pending review. Maya's inbox filled with messages from flight attendants, pilots, and gate agents sharing similar experiences across multiple airlines. The Transportation Equity Project had touched a nerve within the industry, exposing systemic issues that had been normalized for decades. As the trial date approached, Raymond Whitaker made a final desperate attempt to control the narrative. He appeared on a conservative talk show, portraying himself as the victim of cancel culture and corporate appeasement of woke sensibilities. The host sympathetically asked if Whitaker felt targeted because of his age or race. "I'm from a generation where courtesy and proper behavior were expected," Raymond replied, his voice quavering slightly. "Now I'm being crucified for defending my personal space from someone who became confrontational." Maya watched the interview with her roommate Zoe, who had accompanied her back to Princeton. "It's amazing how he still believes that narrative, despite the video evidence," Zoe remarked. "He doesn't necessarily believe it," Maya replied. "He just needs others to believe it." The following morning, Maya received news that would fundamentally alter the case. Jennifer Martinez had decided to testify, bringing with her documentation that Transcontinental's management had instructed flight attendants to give preferential treatment to certain passengers based on their membership tier or perceived importance, a policy that created inherent bias in how passenger conflicts were handled. "This changes everything," Grace Washington explained over the phone. "With Jennifer's testimony and documents, we can establish that the airline's policies themselves were discriminatory, not just their handling of this specific incident." As Maya hung up, she felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also a strange sort of gratitude toward Raymond Whitaker. His act of hatred had inadvertently created an opportunity to address deeper systemic issues that might otherwise have remained hidden for years. The pretrial hearings concluded with Judge Harriman ruling overwhelmingly in Maya's favor regarding admissible evidence and expert testimony. The stage was set for a trial that would not merely determine liability for one incident, but potentially establish new precedents for how airlines handled discrimination. Maya's final preparation included a mock cross-examination conducted by Grace's colleagues. They grilled her mercilessly about her behavior on the plane, her motives for pursuing the case, even her relationship with her father. By the end, Maya was exhausted but confident in her ability to maintain composure under pressure. The night before opening arguments were scheduled to begin, Maya sat alone in her childhood bedroom in Atlanta, reviewing her testimony one final time. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler Jordan. "No matter what happens tomorrow, you've already changed the industry. Airlines across the country are revising their training protocols because of you." Maya set down her notes and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow would be challenging, but she was ready. Raymond Whitaker had intended to put her in her place. Instead, he had helped her find her voice and her purpose. 1 year after Flight 1382, Maya Thompson stood at a podium in the grand ballroom of the Atlanta Marriott Marquis, addressing the inaugural Transportation Equity Summit. Behind her, a diverse panel of industry leaders waited their turn to speak, including Jonathan Pierce, CEO of Transcontinental Airlines. "When I boarded that flight last year," Maya began, her voice steady and clear, "I was a computer science student with a quantum computing project due the following week. Today I stand before you as something I never expected to become, an advocate for systemic change in how our transportation systems handle discrimination." The audience of airline executives, government officials, civil rights leaders, and tech innovators listened attentively. In the front row, Lamar and Regina Thompson watched with undisguised pride as their daughter commanded the room with the same authority Lamar brought to corporate boardrooms. "The outcome of our legal case has been well documented," Maya continued, referencing the landmark verdict delivered 3 months earlier. The jury had found both Raymond Whitaker and Transcontinental Airlines liable, awarding substantial compensatory damages and unprecedented punitive damages against the airline, specifically for their discriminatory policies. Rather than appeal, Transcontinental had made the surprising decision to embrace transformation. Jonathan Pierce had publicly acknowledged the company's failings and committed to implementing comprehensive reforms, starting with the hiring of diversity consultants and policy experts recommended by Maya's foundation. But legal victories alone don't create lasting change, Maya emphasized, turning to the practical portion of her address. "Today I'm excited to announce the launch of our Equitable Skies Initiative, a collaborative effort between the Transportation Equity Project and 7 major airlines to implement standardized anti-discrimination protocols across the industry." The initiative represented the culmination of months of negotiation and development, transforming Maya's traumatic experience into concrete policy improvements that would protect thousands of future travelers. Additionally, she continued, "I'm pleased to share that the AI-driven bias detection algorithm I began developing as a student project has now been implemented by 3 major technology companies to identify and mitigate discrimination in customer service interactions." Maya gestured toward a section of the audience where representatives from leading tech firms sat. Her algorithm, refined with help from Princeton professors and Pinnacle Innovations engineers, had evolved into a sophisticated tool for identifying patterns of discriminatory treatment in large data sets. Everything from ride-sharing wait times in different neighborhoods to airport security screening durations based on passenger demographics. "What happened on that flight revealed problems much bigger than one passenger's bigotry," Maya noted. "It exposed how our systems often lack clear protocols for addressing discrimination before it escalates to violence." As Maya concluded her remarks and introduced the panel discussion, she caught sight of a familiar face entering the ballroom. Jennifer Martinez, the flight attendant whose testimony had proven crucial, had recently been promoted to Transcontinental's newly created Passenger Advocacy Department. Her courage in speaking out had not cost her career, but had instead advanced it in unexpected ways. During the panel, Jonathan Pierce acknowledged the company's initial mishandling of the incident. "We focused on avoiding liability rather than addressing the real problem," he admitted. "Miss Thompson's persistence forced us to examine policies that we'd never adequately questioned despite their clear bias." When asked about Raymond Whitaker, Maya's response reflected her growth over the past year. "Mr. Whitaker's actions were reprehensible, but they were also enabled by systems that prioritize certain passengers' comfort over others' safety. True justice required changing those systems, not just punishing one individual." After the conviction, the judge had sentenced Raymond to community service at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, along with a substantial fine. The man who had been so outraged at sitting near Maya in first class now spent weekends guiding visitors through exhibits documenting America's ongoing struggle for racial equality. Following the summit's first day, Maya attended a private dinner with key stakeholders and allies. Tyler Jordan, now a board member of the Transportation Equity Project, raised a toast to her achievements. "A year ago, Maya Thompson was assaulted for occupying space someone thought she didn't deserve," he began. "Today, she's created space for thousands of voices that have gone unheard for decades." That's not just resilience, that's leadership. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her Princeton advisor. Her research team had just received a major grant to expand their work on algorithmic bias detection. Despite the unexpected detour her life had taken, her academic career continued to flourish. Later that evening, Maya and her parents walked along Atlanta's Beltline, enjoying the spring air and relative anonymity away from the summit. "Have I told you lately how extraordinarily proud I am of you?" Lamar asked, his arm around her shoulders. Maya smiled. "Only about 3 times today." "Your father has been insufferable at board meetings," Regina teased. "Every discussion somehow circles back to my daughter's foundation or my daughter's algorithm." Lamar didn't deny it. In fact, he had recently announced his intention to step back from day-to-day operations at Pinnacle Innovations to co-chair the Transportation Equity Project with Maya. The company would continue under the leadership of his longtime COO, while Lamar focused on leveraging his corporate connections to advance the foundation's work. "I've spent 30 years building technology," he had explained to the board. "Now I want to help build justice." As the family walked, Maya reflected on the unexpected trajectory her life had taken. The assault had been traumatic, certainly, but her response to it had unlocked purpose and passion she might otherwise have taken years to discover. 2 days later, Maya boarded another flight, this time to a technology conference in San Francisco, where she would present her research. As she settled into her first-class seat, she noticed subtle changes in how the crew operated. The anti-bias training now mandated across the industry, resulting in small but meaningful differences in interactions with passengers. The flight attendant checking her ticket smiled warmly. "Miss Thompson, I recognized your name from the passenger list. Your work has made our jobs easier and our flights safer. Thank you." Maya nodded in acknowledgement, then turned to her window as the plane taxied toward the runway. Below Atlanta, stretched out in the morning sun, the city where she had been raised on her father's principles of excellence and perseverance. As the aircraft lifted into the sky, Maya opened her laptop to review her presentation. The screen displayed the algorithm she had nearly lost when Raymond Whitaker spilled his drink, now refined into a powerful tool for detecting hidden patterns of bias. What had begun as an academic exercise had evolved into something with real-world impact, much like Maya herself. 6 weeks later, Maya stood on Princeton's graduation stage as valedictorian, looking out at her classmates and their families. Her speech had been anticipated for weeks, the student newspaper speculating about whether she would address her now famous experience. "When I arrived at Princeton 4 years ago," she began, "I believe success meant following a predetermined path, excelling in my classes, securing prestigious internships, and eventually taking my place in the tech industry. I never imagined that my most important lesson would come not from a professor or textbook, but from a moment of hatred on an airplane at 30,000 feet. Maya paused, scanning the audience where her parents sat beaming. "That moment taught me that our greatest contributions often emerge from our deepest challenges. It showed me that the skills I'd developed for quantum computing could be repurposed to identify discrimination in everyday systems. Most importantly, it revealed that true leadership isn't about avoiding difficulty, but about transforming it into positive change." As she concluded her address to thunderous applause, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. The bruises had long since healed, but their impact remained, not as trauma, but as transformation. Raymond Whitaker had attempted to remind her that she didn't belong in spaces he considered his domain. Instead, he had inadvertently propelled her into creating new spaces where everyone belonged. What would you have done in Maya's situation? Would you have settled for a quick payout or fought for systemic change like she did? This story shows how one person's courage can transform personal trauma into positive change for many. If Maya's story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives about overcoming injustice. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that standing up for what's right matters, even when it's difficult. And remember, the next time you witness discrimination, whether on a plane, in a classroom, or at your workplace, your voice matters. As Maya Thompson showed us, sometimes the person who speaks up changes more than just their own situation. They change the world. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Maya's story teaches us that dignity isn't negotiable and change requires courage. When faced with discrimination, the easiest path is often silence or private settlement. Yet true transformation demands we challenge the systems that enable prejudice. What made Maya's response powerful wasn't just her refusal to be silenced, but her vision beyond personal vindication. She recognized that her position of privilege gave her a platform many others lack. By rejecting confidential settlements and creating systemic solutions, she turned a personal attack into collective progress. The story also shows how institutions often prioritize avoiding liability over addressing root causes. Only when forced to confront their failings do they implement meaningful change. This highlights our responsibility as witnesses and bystanders. Silence protects the status quo, while speaking up catalyzes transformation. Perhaps most importantly, Maya's journey reminds us that our greatest contributions can emerge from our deepest challenges. By redirecting her technical skills toward detecting bias, she found purpose in her pain and created tools that extend far beyond her individual experience. Have you ever witnessed discrimination and wished you'd spoken up? Share your experience in the comments. What situations have you seen where someone standing up made a real difference? Like this video if Maya's story inspired you to be more courageous in the face of injustice. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about people transforming trauma into positive change. And share this video with someone who needs encouragement to speak up when they witness discrimination. Remember, your voice matters. Sometimes, the smallest act of courage ripples outward in ways we can't imagine.